The silence was broken. For 6,000 years, the galaxy knew peace. The Great Pact, signed after the last Star War, had held firm. Empires rose, trade flowed, cultures mixed, and weapons were forgotten. Most races didn't even teach war anymore. There were no armies, only peacekeepers. Planets turned into gardens and spaceports into markets. But deep under a forgotten moon, in the darkest edge of the old Terran zone, something was still waiting. Silent. Sealed. Sleeping. It was called Outpost. But no one remembered its name anymore. Until the signal came, it was weak, just a pulse. One tiny beat sent from a distant star system, followed by a short message. Unknown fleet approaching. Destroyers. No flags. No response. The Council of Worlds received the report and thought it was a mistake. Pirates, maybe. A lost probe. Nothing serious, but the fleet didn't stop. By the time it reached the outer colonies, communications went dark. Then trade routes were cut. A merchant ship sent one final scream. They're not talking, they're burning everything. The galaxy was not ready. The enemy didn't ask questions. They didn't claim territory. They just wiped entire planets. Clean. Their ships were massive and black like moving shadows. They attacked without warning and vanished before anyone could track them. The Council was thrown into panic. The peacekeepers were useless. They had never seen real war. And the archives of old human wars, once feared, were buried too deep, locked away like nightmares no one wanted to remember. One desperate voice spoke up in a hidden chamber. An old historian, barely remembered by his peers, said only one thing: wake the Terran Vault. At first, no one listened. The Terran Zone had been silent for thousands of years. Earth had vanished from politics, its people blending into the stars. Some even thought humanity was extinct, but the vault was real. Built in secret during the final years of the old Terran Alliance, the vault was not a city. It was not a base. It was a warning. Inside it slept something ancient, something Earth had never used during its last war. The Council hesitated, but only for a moment. Then, when one of their core worlds fell, they sent the signal. Deep beneath the rocky crust of that forgotten moon, metal walls lit up. Energy surged through cables untouched for millennia. A single screen blinked to life. And then came the sound, slow and heavy, of gears turning. A figure stood in the dark chamber, not human, not machine, something in between. His eyes opened for the first time in 6,000 years. Designation: Sentinel Prime. Wake sequence complete. He stood without sound, his frame tall and covered in ancient armor etched with Terran script. Lights across his chest blinked as systems came online. His voice was low, steady, and without emotion. Status check. Galactic peace compromised. Council distress signal received. Then he took one step forward, and the floor shook. The weapon had awoken. The Council's last hope, continuation of 6,000 years of peace, ended, and humanity's sleeping weapon awoke. Style: third person, simple English, suspenseful. Tone: the Council of Worlds gathered in the Grand Hall. The air was tense. No one smiled. The leaders of over 30 species sat in silence, watching the large central screen as it displayed data they didn't want to believe. Planet after planet, burned. Outposts, gone. Trade stations, silent. And then came the confirmation. The vault had responded. The old historian stepped forward and spoke with a calm voice. It worked. The Terran Sentinel has awoken. The room filled with whispers. But is it safe? Asked the waterborne ambassador. Can it be controlled? No one controls it. The historian replied. It's not a machine. It's not a soldier. It's something else. The image on the screen changed, now showing a dark shape walking across the surface of the forgotten moon. The Sentinel's armor glowed faintly. His hands crackled with silent power. And around him, ancient Terran, drones floated to life, forming a protective circle. The historian continued. He was made in the last days of Earth's military age, not to conquer, but to end wars. They called him a peace enforcer, a sleeping blade. The council leader, a A tall figure with metallic skin leaned forward. Can it stop the enemy fleet? That depends, the historian said. If he still remembers how. On the moon's surface, the Sentinel stood before an old control terminal. The system welcomed him like an old friend. Command interface open. Threat confirmed. Location, Sector 12, Council territory breach. His mind, partly machine and partly human, processed the data in seconds. Coordinates, ship counts, weapon types, all too familiar. He remembered this kind of destruction. He had seen it before, long ago, when Earth stood alone against an alliance that once turned its back on humanity. He had been born in fire, trained by silence, built to be the last response when nothing else worked. He turned toward the stars. Deploying Pathfinder unit. Initial contact, non-lethal. Response protocol, escalate only if necessary. From beneath the moon, a hangar opened. A sleek Terran ship rose up, black, sharp, fast. It launched into the sky, silent like a shadow, carrying the Sentinel toward the edge of war. The Council watched the launch in silence. Some still doubted. Some were afraid. But they all knew one truth now. The galaxy had nothing left to fight with, except humanity's last weapon, and it had just taken flight. First contact with the enemy. Continuation of 6,000 years of peace ended, and humanity's sleeping weapon awoke. Style, third person, simple English. Suspenseful, action-driven tone. The enemy fleet moved like a black wave. Cold, silent, unstoppable. They didn't send warnings. They didn't answer hails. Every planet in their path became a graveyard. Their ships had no markings, no names, no lights. They looked like shadows given shape. But now, they had company. High above the Council colony of Viralan 3, the Terran. Pathfinder ship dropped out of warp. Small in size but faster than anything the galaxy had seen in thousands of years. Inside it stood the Sentinel, silent, focused, watching. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. His eyes scanned the enemy fleet, his mind already calculating. Contact with hostile units established, awaiting response. He sent a signal, short, simple, and calm. This is a Terran construct. You are in violation of the Galactic Peace Pact. Turn back or be engaged. No answer. The enemy ships turned slowly. 3 of them broke from the group and accelerated toward him. Their weapons glowed. Their engines screamed. They were preparing to strike. The Sentinel remained still. He whispered to the ship. Non-lethal response. Show them. The ship moved. It didn't fly like normal vessels. It glided, curving through space with impossible speed. It dodged laser fire like it had eyes of its own. Then it spun, released, a blinding burst of light, and launched a wave of EMP charges. The first enemy ship went dark instantly. The second spun out of control, systems fried. The third opened fire wildly until the Terran ship blinked behind it and disabled its engines. No. Kills just silence. But the message was clear. This was no ordinary machine. This was Terran war tech, alive again. Far away, on the enemy mothership, strange figures stood in shadows. They had no mouths, no eyes, only shifting black faces and long, spindly limbs. One of them pointed at the replay of the Sentinel's ship in motion. They spoke, in pulses, not words, signals. One short burst repeated again and again. Terran. They remembered. They knew that name. They had hoped humanity was truly gone, that Earth's flame had finally died. But now, that ancient light was back, and it was moving fast. The enemy's true intent, continuation of 6,000 years of peace ended, and humanity's sleeping weapon awoke. Style, third person, simple English, suspenseful and mysterious tone. The Council of Worlds gathered again. Their eyes were fixed on the battle footage. They had seen it happen live. One Terran ship disabling 3 enemy destroyers in under 40 seconds. without killing anyone. It shocked the galaxy. "How is that possible?" one ambassador whispered. "Terran technology," said the historian. "That was only a warning. If the Sentinel wanted, those ships would be gone." But now, new data was coming in, and it brought more questions. Across the stars, the enemy fleet had stopped. No attacks, no movement, just silence. "They're waiting," the science minister said. But for what? Meanwhile, the Sentinel stood inside his ship, staring at a projection. It showed something new, something hidden beneath the enemy fleet's formation. A shape. Massive. Not a warship, a device. A deep space machine slowly unfolding. He tapped the interface. Analyzing structure. Confirmed. Planetary erasure weapon. Target. Council homeworld. His eyes narrowed slightly. They didn't come to conquer. They came to end us. Back at the council, Lara, the young diplomat who had been chosen to speak for peace, stepped forward. "If they want to erase us," she asked, "why did they stop after the Sentinel showed up?" The historian answered, "Because they know what humanity used to be, and they know the Sentinel is just one piece of something far greater." "Then they're afraid?" "No," the historian said, shaking his head. "They're measuring." He walked to the center of the chamber and pulled up an ancient star map, one marked with all the locations of Terran vaults across old Earth-controlled space. Long ago, there were more weapons like the Sentinel, 10 in total, each placed, in secret, each sealed. "If even one more wakes up..." He didn't finish the sentence. In deep space, the enemy sent a single ship forward, small, unarmed. It carried a signal, unlike any seen before. It wasn't a threat. It was a challenge, a test. The Sentinel received the signal and stood still. "They want to speak," he said aloud, but not with words. He turned toward the blackness beyond his window and whispered one sentence, "So be it." The duel in the void, continuation of 6,000 years of peace ended, and humanity's sleeping weapon awoke. Style: third person, simple English, action-focused, dramatic tone. The stars were quiet. In the open stretch between the enemy, fleet and the council colonies, a single zone was cleared. No ships entered, no signals were sent. Only 2 vessels floated there now, one from the enemy, one from Earth. A duel was about to begin. The enemy ship was sharp, black, and fast. It moved like smoke, its armor shifting like liquid metal. No visible weapons, but its energy signature was strong, alive, dangerous. Inside the Terran Pathfinder, the Sentinel stood ready. His armor glowed faint blue, his eyes fixed on the shadow before him. His voice was calm. "Confirmed. Enemy scout-class duelist. Combat protocol unlocked. Beginning engagement." The duel began without a sound. The enemy ship vanished, then reappeared behind the Sentinel's vessel, firing a stream of light so sharp it split space itself. But the Terran ship bent sideways, dodging by less than a meter, and returned fire. With pinpoint plasma bolts, every move was precise, no panic, no wasted energy. The enemy tried to outsmart him, using tricks, illusions, speed. But the Sentinel wasn't just a pilot. He was the weapon. His ship spun, dived, and twisted in ways thought impossible. Every strike he took was absorbed by advanced shields layered in old Terran tech. Every counterstrike he delivered left cracks in the enemy's defenses. Then, with one perfect maneuver, he disabled the enemy ship's main core. The black vessel froze in place, powerless, but the Sentinel didn't finish it. Instead, he sent a signal, one loud and clear. "I chose not to destroy you. Understand what that means." The disabled ship floated in silence for a long time. Then it sent a final pulse, not in code, but in memory. A visual image broadcast straight into the Sentinel's mind. What he saw changed everything. Planets burning, children crying, cities falling. But not by enemy hands, by Council forces. From long ago, from the forgotten. Wars. Hidden history. The enemy wasn't just a threat. They were survivors. The truth buried by time. Continuation of 6,000 years of peace ended, and humanity's sleeping weapon awoke. Style, third person, simple English, revealing. And emotional tone, the vision didn't fade right away. The sentinel stood still, his mind flooded with images from the enemy ship. They weren't just recordings, they were memories. Raw, unfiltered, real. He saw old worlds, quiet, peaceful, being destroyed by fleets flying council banners, colonies wiped out, cities bombed, civilian ships blasted from orbit. The ones, now called the enemy, were once a thriving species. The sentinel opened his eyes slowly. "They're not invaders," he said aloud. "They're angry. They're broken. And we did this." Back on the council homeworld, Lara waited for the next report. When the message came through, she stared at the screen, stunned. "The enemy has sent a memory burst," the tech officer explained. "They're showing us history from their side." The council leaders reviewed the transmission. One by one, their faces turned pale. It was true. 6,000 years ago, at the height of the old council's power, long before peace, the enemy species had asked to join the Galactic Alliance. They had resources, knowledge, culture, but they had also refused to give up their military, and for that they were branded dangerous. A secret decision was made. A fleet was sent. No witnesses left behind. The only mistake? Some of them survived. Hidden. Waiting. Watching. Now they had returned, not to conquer, but to punish the galaxy that tried to erase them. The room fell silent. "We did this," one counselor said, voice shaking. The historian nodded. "And they remember every moment." Lara stood. "Then maybe this isn't just about survival. Maybe it's about owning what we did, and asking for something we forgot long ago." The council leader looked at her. "Forgiveness?" She nodded. "Or at least a chance to stop repeating the past." In deep space, the enemy ship regained control. It didn't attack. It didn't flee. It sent a message. One word, pulsing in ancient Terran script. "Speak." The sentinel stared at it. He replied, "Then listen. Peace forged in shadow. Final part of 6,000 years of peace ended, and humanity's sleeping weapon awoke. Style, third person, simple English. Thoughtful, powerful ending. The message spread across the galaxy. The Terran sentinel had spoken. The enemy had answered. And now, both sides were listening. For the first time in 6,000 years, real truth was shared. Not just words, but memories. Painful ones. Stories that had been buried by dust and time, now uncovered for every world to see. The council issued a public statement. "We were wrong. We erased a people, we hid it, we lied, and we are ready to make it right." It was not just a speech. It was a beginning. High above the stars, in the clear space between fleets, a new meeting took place. Not in a grand hall, not on a capital world, but aboard the Vigil, the Terran Pathfinder ship, aboard a vessel made for war, now used for peace. The sentinel stood beside Lara, the chosen diplomat. Across from them, a single figure stood, tall, cloaked in dark energy, its face ever shifting, a living memory of the ancient survivors. No weapons, no threats, just presence. Lara spoke first. "We ask not for mercy, we ask for a new path, one where the past is remembered, but no longer repeated." The alien didn't answer with words. Instead, it raised one hand and placed an old, scarred, council insignia on the table, burned, twisted, a symbol of betrayal. Then, slowly, it crushed the badge into dust and nodded. Peace. Not quick, not easy, but real. Later, the sentinel stood alone on the deck, watching distant stars. He didn't smile. He didn't rest. He had been built for war, but now he had done something greater. He had stopped one. "Status?" the system asked. "Mission complete," he replied. But before the lights could dim, before he could return to sleep, something new appeared on the screen. A pulse. From deep space, from another vault. Another Terran weapon. Waking up. The Sentinel turned, armor, humming with power again. Peace needs more than hope, he said quietly. It needs protectors. He walked toward the command deck, because even in peace, the galaxy still needed its guardians.